You're listening to Packers Talk Network. PackersTalk.com.
Welcome to the Packers Weekly Podcast, part of PackersTalk.com network. I'm your host, Miles Teddick, joined by your co-host, Tim Hamilton. We are diehard Packers fans that just love talking about the Pack. We're not getting into all the national sports media nonsense and talking points. We're sticking with football and talking about the top topics around the Pack every week, breaking down games during the season and sorting through all the drama and the rumors of the offseason. If y'all want to support the podcast, please spike that like button for us. Give us a follow on all the socials, and most importantly, please subscribe to the Packers Talk YouTube channel. Those things help us out tremendously. Tonight, we get to talk about a fun game against the Texans. I know maybe closer than some of us wanted it to be, but I personally think that there was more gained in that. We'll get there, but then we get to move on to this next game against the Jaguars. Could be an interesting one. Hopefully not too interesting. But first, let's get a few words from the sponsors. Wisconsin's own Ticket King. For over 30 years, Ticket King has been providing Packers tickets to Packers fans. You can find them on the web at theticketking.com or visit their locations in Green Bay and Milwaukee. For direct links to specific Packers game tickets, go to packerstalk.com/tickets or browse their website at theticketking.com. Good evening, Tim. How we doing, sir?
Good evening. I was doing great. Very, very nice win. Yes. I know it was closer than we wanted to be. Didn't want it to go down to a last-second kick by the brand new kicker, but hey, they found somebody that can make a 45-yard field goal, which is sweet. That's progress.
That's
progress, at least for a week. And I'll take the win. Take it any way you can get it. It was a game that I think the Packers showed that they were the better team in, and unfortunately, they made plenty of mistakes. Most of those were their own fault. But they showed the ability to overcome it, and a really nice win against the 5-1 at the time Texans team.
Right.
A Texans team that, they look pretty good. And it's a game that the Packers at this time last year would not have won. No. They would have made all those mistakes and completely given the game away. So they almost gave it away this time, but they overcame the adversity, they overcame their mistakes, and they were able to pull out the win in the end. A nice game-winning drive, something that they couldn't accomplish last season. They were able to accomplish it on Sunday. So, yeah, really nice win against a good quality opponent. So I'm very happy with it, and we're seeing what this team can potentially be. They're not there yet, but it's there for them. They're once they start overcoming some of these or eliminating some of these mistakes, especially offensively, I think they can roll through teams offensively. And the defense, the more games they get, the more reps, the more time Jeff Hafley has with them, man, it's looking good. There's definitely a huge difference on defense just in the way that they attack teams, how they use their personnel, how they scheme and adjust week to week, how they adjust within games. And again, they're not there yet defensively. But what we're seeing right now, especially against the Texans, it looks really nice, and the potential there is huge for what they can be. So I'm not ready to say we have a defense yet, but
don't jinx it yet.
But the signs are there. There's a lot of progress. So yeah, that was a quality win. I don't want to hear about how they should have beaten them by more. Sure, they definitely could have, but they won. It's a real nice win for them.
No doubt. No doubt. I totally agree, man. It was a very nice win. And I just think that there's a lot more to be gained from overcoming adversity than there is from winning pretty, and winning pretty is what fans like. We love it, man. Right. Like, give us all the flashy plays, pick six, whatever. Give me all that, right? All the big 90-yard touchdowns. But as far as a team perspective goes, building chemistry, building a championship team, overcoming adversity is it's got to be at the foundation of that. So seeing that these guys continue to do that week over week it's just a lot of fun, man. It's fun to see. I think a lot of times in the past we've seen teams quit, and maybe quitting isn't overt, but you could just sort of see it. You could tell that, like, oh man, things aren't going their way. They're probably going to fold, or they're not going to get better. Whereas this team still has that like hard-headed refusal to quit. It's like, yeah, things aren't going our way. Oh well, let's keep going. It's naive, but it's beautiful.
Right.
And I just think what they did in that game, obviously there were struggles, I think, all around. The defense struggled to stop the run, but they were awesome against the pass. And then, pass rush is doing great getting to Stroud. The offense, has its own back and forth, a couple turnovers, leading, or making 3 turnovers, I guess. Just self-inflicted wounds. The Nixon punt return situation. It's like, you got to field that, man. But these are things that are not, I don't know, signs of longer term concerns. And we see them bounce back almost immediately. I think on the broadcast, they showed Jordan Love's stats after that first interception, and they were pretty impressive. So I'm just very, very encouraged by what this team can do when they meet adversity later on. I think winning pretty in this game maybe builds too much of a false sense of confidence, because it's a good team, right? Like, and I don't think that that's lost on any of the Packers. I don't think that they thought that the Texans were some kind of walk in the park. But yeah, when you win like that, you had to earn it. You did it at home. There's just a lot to take from that. I think there's a lot to build on there, and I was very excited. I don't even care if they should win by more. I was excited to figure out a way to win it.
Yeah, just win. I don't care so much about winning pretty or how big of a margin of victory it is. Just get the victory, especially at this point in the season as you're building your team. Like
right.
You're still trying to figure out what you are and what you're going to be, and you don't want to be playing your best football in October. You want to be learning who you are as a team and building to that point so that later in the year you are playing your best football. And I mean, how many teams are winning pretty week in and week out? Like the Chiefs are the only undefeated team, and they're winning a lot of close games.
But look at where Pat Mahomes is at. His stats are terrible.
Right. They can't generate much in their passing game, which is incredible. But actually, it's now 2 years in a row that they've been underwhelming offensively. Like, but so what? They just know how to win. They know how to win close games. They know how to win against good teams. They know how to overcome adversity, overcome turnovers, all that stuff. Like, and they're not going to apologize for it. And, look at all the rings they got, and all the victories. They're undefeated right now.
Right.
So I don't care that it wasn't an easy win, that they didn't win by a couple scores like they probably could have. Sure.
Right.
Like, I mean, especially the way, if, you eliminate a couple of the turnovers, whether it's an interception, both interceptions, obviously the punt return. I mean, they gave them 2 short fields, the first interception and then the Nixon Corey Ballantyne thing on the punt return. That was rough. Like, so the Texans really, they had 1 or 2 drives where they moved the ball okay, but you take those turnovers out of it, Packers probably score once or twice there. Like, it's a different game than, and Joe Mixon's probably taken out of the game too, just because of the score. And we saw what the pass rush was and the pass defense was. So yeah, it could get lopsided, but end of the day, like, they got to win, and they got to win against what seems to be a pretty good Texans team. And, I get your point. They're overcoming adversity. They're learning how to win. This is a game that they don't win last season. And now they've been through it. They know how to find a way and get the job done. And it's more experience for a young team. And, you're seeing and they're seeing what they can be when they, are faced with problems, faced with adversity, and they're seeing the mistakes that they're making and they know what they have to overcome. So, yeah, it's a quality win. I don't care what the final score was, just that they got to win. And that's the most important thing. So, yeah,
absolutely
excited about where they are and where they can be, where their potential is, because we're seeing that. We're seeing it, not throughout an entire game, other than maybe the Cardinal game, but we're seeing a lot of flashes of it. There's some things, a lot of things that they have to clean up, but they're capable of it, because I think a lot of the mistakes or what they're doing to themselves more so than what the other teams are doing to them.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Yeah, and there's still things to clean up. Jordan Love's obviously not perfect. The interceptions are an issue. The first one, totally, I don't think was his fault. I think it was a great play by the DB to bait him into that. But the second one, yeah, bad throw. Don't do that. Just don't do that. But at the same time, and I tried to tweet this, but I just couldn't come up with like the right words. I was just, too long-winded about the thought, so I let it go. But it was, to me, the throw that made that interception is the same throw that he made to Jaden Reed the week before, right? Or was it 2 weeks before? That deep throw that looked like just an irresponsible throw, but Jaden Reed made an amazing catch. And it ended up being a great throw because of that. But it's the same mentality that's making both of those throws. So sometimes it's going to end up in a great catch, and sometimes it's going to end up in an interception. And I think that's where we get, the chatter about, hey, is there a little Favre in this guy? He does. He looks like a little mix of Favre and Rodgers. And from somebody who got to watch almost all of Favre, I was pretty young in the front of his career, but I watched most of his career. That was the exhilarating part, right? It was like, this guy's going to throw the ball up, and God dog it, one of his guys is probably going to come down with it. And sometimes your heart breaks because one of the other guys comes down with it. So, you live by it, you die by it.
Yeah, and I think that was the big debate that's been going on during the game and since the game among Packers fans is he Favre? He's thrown too many interceptions, and he has, and some of them have been really bad this year. Bad decisions, bad throws. He's got to improve on that. But I think as Packer fans, we're also so used to the Aaron Rodgers being here, who avoided turnovers, avoided interceptions.
Right.
And nobody who has ever played the game, he just would not put the ball in harm's way, which, to his credit, he's a Hall of Fame quarterback. He's got the MVPs and all that. But there were also times he wouldn't take chances that he probably should have taken with the ball, or there were times he held on to it and took sacks or threw it away.
Definitely times.
So, as great as he was at that, nobody plays like that really, other than him, which, again, that's to his credit. We have to kind of get out of that mentality, like, oh, Jordan Love threw an interception. Like, well, yeah, most quarterbacks do. Look around the league, and they're, some of them are definitely Favre-like, but some of his touchdown passes and some of his throws down the field are also Favre-like in a good way. And I think people also forget over time all the touchdowns, all the great plays that Favre made. And they just remember the interceptions. And it's like, this dude's a Hall of Fame quarterback for a reason, And
at one point in time, he was the only quarterback, or the only player, I think, that had 3 MVPs.
Yeah, 3 straight. Yeah.
Until Peyton Manning ended up getting his third.
Right.
And then Aaron Rodgers obviously got his third. But
if he's Brett Favre, I'll take it, But I don't even think I think part of it too is Jordan Love's learning what he can do and get away with still in the NFL. And he's got the confidence that he can make these throws. And yes, sometimes it's going to get him in trouble and he's going to throw interceptions, but he also learns what he can do. And he also makes some throws that very few players can make. Right. So
absolutely.
Yeah, he's going to take a chance and throw an interception that you probably don't want him to throw, but he's going to make some throws that nobody else, or maybe a couple guys, can make. And he doesn't let it affect him, whether it's a great throw or a bad throw. Like, he's not getting too high, he's not getting too low. He's just going to come back and keep slinging it.
Right.
And I think you want that mentality, and over time may be this season, but I think he's going to grow out of some of these mistakes and realize what he can be.
That's the part of him watching Rodgers and actually being in the room for what Rodgers did. That's where I think you do get a nice combination of Favre and Rodgers, right? Like, let's let this guy have the nerve of Favre. If he thinks he can do it, let him do it. But to your point, he doesn't want to, right? Like, nobody wants to throw interceptions. And I think that him seeing what Rodgers was able to do, I think he'll be inclined to grow that way, right? Like, maybe limit some of those hero throws, but not all the time, right? Like, let's just get, like he did with Jaden Reed, man. Let's get it down there. He's down there somewhere. He'll get it. You can't do that all the time.
Right. But I mean, what do you want him to do? Do you want him to check it down all the time? Do you want LaFleur and Tom Clemens to go to him and be like, be safe with the ball, don't take a chance, just Just check it down. Like,
I think
because
you got to let a guy be who he is. I think
let
that's a
him be
really
and
important
figure it
part.
out. Like,
Yeah.
it's his second year as a starter.
Yeah.
So he's still figuring things out. He's not a finished product for what he's going to be. So he's got to learn. And, he's going through that. Yes, there's been some bad decisions and throws. And at times I think maybe he's forcing it or trying to make a play, especially at times when they're down or when they're needing to like kind of spark the offense and make a play. Maybe he forces things, but he also makes some incredible throws.
He does.
So he's figuring it out is kind of where I'm at with it. And if he's got some Favre in him, that's not necessarily a bad thing because I think he's got some good Favre in him.
Yeah.
So,
I agree with that.
And he's ultimately going to be his own guy. He's not going to be, Brett Favre 2.0, and he's not going to be Aaron Rodgers 2.0. Like, he's going to be his own guy. So let him figure it out. And I think he is. And I hope he cuts down on the turnovers for sure, the interceptions. But I'm happy with like where he's trending right now, coming off. He missed 2 games. He came back with the knee injury. But ever since like that second half against Minnesota, I think you're starting to see him make steps and get better. The Texans played really good defense against the Packers too, so give them credit. So it wasn't, a great game from him. But there's signs there, and they're getting close on offense. They really are, and I think it's just a matter. This was a game where they didn't have very many penalties on offense, which was kind of different.
Yep.
So maybe that's something they're cleaning up. So now if he can clean up some of these interceptions, I think they're just going to roll through teams offensively once they can stop shooting themselves in the foot.
Yeah, I really think you're right, man. When they start really putting it together, it's going to be a sight to see. I would go as far as to say that the defense was responsible for this win. Is that fair?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Right.
I think the pass rush, yes.
Yeah. I mean, and obviously, they did get run over a little bit by Mixon. Yes. And if the Texans had only run Mixon throughout the game, they might have won. But that's the beauty of the offense, being able to do what they had to get ahead. I think that played massively into the defense's favor to keep the ball in the air and in Stroud's hands instead of in Mixon's hands. And if you can't do that, if you can't hold up your end of the deal, and I think at some points last year that was the case, the game falls out of your hands, it's just neat to see this progression happening, man. To see that, and what did I say? I think I said it was about 8 weeks, right? We needed to give it about 8 weeks, and here we are. This is probably the first week I would say that the defense won the game for you. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, I think they've definitely helped and been contributors.
They haven't lost, right?
In every win, they've really helped. I mean,
right.
But this was the first week they didn't get turnovers, and that's kind of been one of my concerns. Is like,
that's an interesting point.
Maybe I mean, I'll take the turnovers, and I think part of it's sometimes I think turnovers you can be a little lucky with that, but I also think it's the mentality that you create and the way you play defense where it like becomes a part of who you are. And I think maybe that's what the Packers are this year. That's what I hope. But I did kind of have that worry. We've talked about it. Like, what's going to happen when they don't get the turnovers? Like, are they going to get exposed a little bit, or are they going to be able to just be a really good defense even without the turnovers? And they didn't get any. And the pass coverage, the pass rush, it was really good. So yeah, that's a long way of saying, yes, I agree with you. I think the defense was mostly responsible for this game.
Well, I wanted to even go further into this because one question that I had, like when we were coming into the season and we were talking about what the defense could look like and all of that, there's a lot of optimism around that because of what the players were saying about Hafley's system, and there's just a lot of enthusiasm coming from those guys. The history of Hafley that we could look into looked like it, matched up well with what we thought we wanted to see. There's a lot of good things there, but the question is, all right, the guy's never been a play caller in the NFL. So how does he do as a defensive play caller in the NFL? How does he do with the chess match? And in this game in particular, and maybe I was just watching closer, so if somebody cares to correct me, I'm open to it. Bring it on. But I have not to this point seen Hafley scheme a win right? I guess on a play basis. So the one in particular that really got my attention was he actually the safety blitz from McKinney pre-snap. He baited Stroud into looking to the right side of the field with McKinney coming from the left. Now, what it was is they were outmanned. The defense looked outmanned to the right side. They had more receivers and tight ends to that side than the defense looked like they had to cover. So it baits him into looking that way. And at the snap, they had guys drop from the line to cover in that instance. Now, the beautiful thing is you've got to time this right, because you certainly didn't have the coverage ability to stick with everybody on that side, but you had enough to make Stroud go, oh, can't go there hot. I have to come back this way. And as he came back to the left side, he got a face full of McKinney. It was absolutely beautiful the way that he baited him into that, gave him what he wanted to see pre-snap, brought him back to the other side, and it was too late at that point. That is some chess. That is some stuff right there. That's not just saying we're going to go cover 2 here, or we're going to go cover 3 here. Like he and on a crucial down too, right? I believe it was a 3rd down. Just beautiful, absolutely beautiful play call, beautiful scheme design. Way more than I could have said that I wanted to see from Hafley, but this very much made me feel the same way that I felt about a lot of prime Capers play calling, right? He always seemed to have the right chess move at the right time to just almost manipulate the offense into doing what he wanted them to do, which I think is a very rare thing among defensive coordinators in this league. We certainly never saw that from Joe Barry, not even an ounce of it. So I don't know if anybody else was paying attention. If you weren't, certainly start to tune into this. But Hafley, as the kids would say, is cooking right now.
Yes, and I agree with you there. But what's interesting too is like he didn't blitz a ton in this game. I think he was about 17 or 18%.
No,
but it was how he blitzed and
exactly.
the simulated pressures with the linebackers being right up on the line of scrimmage and then dropping out, or maybe one comes, somebody else drop. Like
Exactly.
So even on the McKinney blitz that you're talking about, they still only rushed 4 guys, but McKinney
Right.
came free.
Right.
Like that's cool. And I think, Hafley hasn't been a big blitzer this year. I've been hoping he starts blitzing more, and maybe he will. But when he does blitz, they're really nice, and they're getting some guys home. And we saw it with McKinney. We saw Keyshawn Nixon had a sack at Darnold, calls the fumble. They've had some Coopers come on blitzes and had pressures and sacks. He's pretty good scheming things open when he decides to send his guys on rushes. But I think we saw him more in this game with linebackers up in the A gap and who's coming, who's dropping out, moving. Got Rashawn Gary moved around more in this game, which was fantastic to see. He, the one pressure that he had where they brought him kind of late.
It was like a stunt, right?
Yeah, well, he was standing up, and then they brought him. They had him come right up the middle.
Oh, okay.
Kind of yeah, it was near the goal line, and they might have had another guy come, but what was Cooper was right up on the center, and you could see the centers was making a call, and it was almost like watching it today. I saw it from behind the quarterback.
Gotcha.
As soon as that center was making a call, I don't know if Cooper knew what he was calling. He picked up something, but he motioned over to Gary to tell him to come to the middle. And you saw Gary kind of walk. And as soon as he came up the middle, they had nobody there to block him. And I think at the last second, the center came off and maybe got a hand on Gary, but Gary was able to flush Stroud out.
Yeah.
And it was just interesting because maybe that's Cooper picking up on something, which is awesome to see from a rookie, or maybe he heard the call and knew it, or whatever it may be. But they move Gary around. Some of the blitzes are really nice. And they're not having to send, 7 guys, or not having to run cover 0 because they're rushing 4, but it just might not be the 4 guys with their hands in the ground.
Right.
Right. It might be a linebacker or somebody from the secondary coming. Preston Smith dropped in coverage a couple of times. Now he was dropping in zones. Let's not freak out. He wasn't covering, Stephon Diggs, but they have done that. They're dropping a lineman out and somebody's coming from the other side. So yeah, the way he's scheming right now it's cool to watch, and you can see the aggressiveness with how they play defense. I think it's just completely different from Barry, but definitely, when you're talking about that McKinney blitz, that was never something that we would see from Barry.
No,
like, let's be real. So
no, Barry was not cooking like that, man. Never.
No. And I think it's been interesting too as the season's going on now to see how he's using his personnel, which guys he's using. And Quay Walker going out yesterday.
That
Eric
was
Wilson,
interesting.
yeah, and it went to Eric Wilson and then a mixture of Cooper and McDuffie. But Eric Wilson was on the field basically the rest of the game, and he had himself a game. He
Yes, he
was,
did.
and he came on some pressures and blitzes
Yep.
and had a couple sacks. He was awesome. I think he's an underrated guy in that game for how good he was and how big of a role he played defensively. But yeah, it's been interesting. Like we're seeing Cooper get more snaps now. So how's that going to, what's the mix going to be at linebacker now off of that game? Eric Wilson, like, I don't know how you put him back to only getting 5 to 10 snaps. Like he might have earned himself more playing time. And then at cornerback, I mean, Keyshawn Nixon he's not the slot corner anymore. He's a starting outside corner opposite Jair. Like he's their guy outside.
That is
It's
interesting.
It's been interesting, but I credit to Keyshawn Nixon. Like I don't think he's gotten beat too badly. I don't think he's been exposed.
Nope.
He's holding up pretty well. It's surprising, and we'll see, if this continues all year. But they really like him at corner. And when they go to nickel, we're seeing Bullard. Yesterday, Bullard didn't. That was kind of surprising. That I think Bullard was 25, 27 snaps like that.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Evan Williams played the entire game at safety. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's right move. Evan Williams needs to be on the field. He continues to make plays. But I'd like to see Bullard on there more too. But they're trying to mix and match all these guys. And unfortunately, Carrington Valentine, 2 straight games, he hasn't even played on defense. And then Stokes got a handful of snaps in the dime. But it's just interesting how they're using their guys, how Hafley's figuring out who he wants out there. And it's in the secondary, it's been Nixon, it's been Williams.
Yes.
And I don't think you can right now argue with that. I mean, I hope more Bullard too, but Nixon's holding up. So he's certainly playing better at corner than Eric Stokes was.
Well, we can take a look at a little bit more of the detailed stats here. As far as Nixon goes, he was targeted twice, 1 catch for 2 yards. So, I mean,
yeah,
you can't really ask for a better performance than that.
When you hold Stroud to 86 yards, I mean, they all did well.
Everybody had a good day, pretty much, yeah. Now, Evan Williams did not grade well, but this is where we take PFF with a grain of salt and we override them.
Yeah, I saw that earlier today. No way. He played a strong game again.
He had a good game. And just to speak to that, instead of the grade, we can look at the stats. He had 7 tackles. It says stops. I'm not sure what a stop is. I wonder if that's short of the first down. But he was targeted twice, no catches. I mean, he had a fantastic day. I don't think you can ask for a guy to play better than that. As far as grading goes, his tackling grade was in borderline, I think elite 86.7. So I mean, pretty damn good day.
Yeah, he's made a really nice play on the 2-point conversion. Stopping that, not allowing
huge play, and that came up big in the game. That was a huge factor in the game.
Yeah, I thought he played well. So I saw that earlier today with PFF, and I definitely had a problem with that. And the secondary overall, you hold CJ Stroud to 86 yards. You hold the big mouth Stephon Diggs, 5 catches, 23 yards.
Big deal.
Yeah. I mean, it's really good, but it worked in conjunction with the pass rush. They had a pass rush, and it's been far too inconsistent this year. But on Sunday, we saw them have a pass rush. We saw Rashawn Gary step up, Eric Wilson, and
absolutely
McKinney on the rush. And so it's, you had both those things working together. Obviously, that's going to, have you in a great situation in pass defense. Run defense, not so good. And Joe Mixon was gashing them. And that's something they gotta improve on, because teams are going to see that. And smart coordinators, teams that want to run the ball or want to stick with the run, they're going to find out that they probably can against the Packers. So, definitely going to improve there.
You're not wrong. You got to stop the run. There's no 2 ways about that. One thing that I was kind of pondering on about that, though, is you can't do that if you're behind, right? And I think that's where the Texans and Mixon became less effective with what they were doing, is the Packers got ahead, so you got to put the ball in the air. You got to try to stay on the field. And, you know, I mean, by averages, if you'd have just kept handing it to Mixon, you'd have been fine. But, that's what coordinators do. That's what the psychology of the game, the emotions of the game. You get behind, you got to throw the ball. And they just could not throw the ball effectively. It was, and you could see how visibly frustrated Stroud was on the sidelines. The official stats on that, though, 11 hurries, 3 hits, 4 sacks. So, I mean, they were in his face every play. He was not comfortable once. And I think that's a huge testament to the pass rush and the D line and all those guys, and just the way that Hafley's cooking up these pressures. There was another one that got my attention that was a bit of a stunt where Gary ended up, he looked like he was coming from the right side and delayed and rolled back and came in from the left side. And that created a hell of a pressure. I can't remember if it ended a sack or not, but that was, when you're doing that, man, it's going to be hard for a team to beat you, because they might be able to run all over you, and I hear that. But if they have to put the ball in the air, and with this Packers offense, I think that's what's the beauty of this, and where complementary football really comes into play. If you got to put the ball in the air, it's going to be a tough thing to do against this team, because it's 2 phases, man. The pass rush is relentless from both ways. And you've got a secondary back there that is hungry and capable. They're fine. And as far as Javon Bullard goes, I wanted to mention this. He's officially listed as slot corner. He did not get any reps at safety in this game, but he got 17 at slot corner. And it looks like he had a few in the box and technically on D-line. But, that's worth noting too. I think that there were a few folks that were talking about that he could be a potential slot corner for this team going forward. And I think it's interesting that it started out that, Nixon was, and now it's, now the roles are kind of reversed. But I like that. I think that's a good development. And I think that's your best way to get Evan Williams and Javon Bullard on the field in ways that fully take advantage of their skill sets. I don't think there's much sacrifice being made by moving Bullard from the safety position down into that slot corner position. I think it gives you a lot more flexibility to use him more like a linebacker if you need to. It seems like that's that's what he wants to do. But, they've got a lot of chess pieces here, and Hafley can play chess. I mean, that was my biggest question coming into the season about him is, can he play chess in the play calling? And he can, man. He's cooking right now. So there's a lot coming together. I think it's very exciting. And if the one thing that you need to focus on is stopping the run, I have confidence that they'll get there, and we've been kind of frustrated, I think, over these first few weeks about Rashawn Gary and his production and all of this. And now we're getting around to it where it's like, all right, Hafley's figuring out how to use Rashawn Gary. Okay. So I have faith in the same thing. I think that they'll get around to it where they figure out, all right, this piece works here, this piece works here. Let's combine a few pieces here, and this will help us stop the run. But what's encouraging is we've seen improvement week over week pretty much the entire season at this point. So I don't think there's any reason to believe that would stop now.
No, I hope not. I mean, that seems to be the trend, and he's figuring out his guys, how he wants to use them, and what they can do best. And he's starting to put guys in those situations consistently, which is what you want to see. So yeah, I think that's the way it's heading, is that this is going to be a defense that continues to improve. And just going back to, you're talking about Bullard and Williams, throw McKinney in there. They're just very interchangeable, and they all work together and complementary at safety. Like, they can all come down and cover. They can come down, play the run or pass rush off the edge. And they can play deep too. So yeah, I mean, the safety room's improvement is, and we've talked about this basically every week. It's incredible.
It's huge.
I think they need to get that D line next. And maybe this was starting to get Rashawn Gary going, because I thought he had a really nice game. You need more from Preston Smith. He's been way too quiet this year. You need more from Lucas Van Ness, those guys. And obviously, stopping the run and rushing the passer along the D line. But it's there. It's getting there. And just the way that Hafley's able to scheme things and create pressures and confuse quarterbacks, make them hold the ball a little bit so that some of these blitzes can get home. It's a noticeable improvement over what we saw from Joe Barry. So yeah, I'm very very happy so far with what Halfley has done, and optimistic about where he can potentially take this defense.
Absolutely. Let's give some love to the comments here. We got our friend Matthew Tan jumping back in with us. Him and his friend Carly, they believe in the pack. Good to have you, Matthew. And he says the ghost of Lambeau scares the other teams. That's true, man. I think the ghost of Lambeau are getting a little scarier, man. The home field advantage is starting to set in again, and we were missing that for a while, and I think they've got it again. And then, of course, Bite Me. Good to have you back in, Bite Me. Do you guys agree that Eric should start over Quay at middle linebacker or outside linebacker, or Cooper to middle linebacker? Quay has a 48 PFF grade. Eric has an 85 PFF grade, and Cooper has a 70 PFF grade. Nice observation there. I think you need those guys on the field. So I guess I would say yes. You have to find a way to get your best players on the field, and I think that it might be a situational thing, a rotational thing. I don't know what it is. The thing about it, though, is somebody's wearing the green dot. I believe Quay has been wearing the green dot so far. And if he's wearing the green dot, he's the guy who's got to stay on the field. And our buddy Rev Trev jumping in as well. Have you talked about Eric Wilson yet? Forgot to talk about him during my show tonight. Good to have you, Rev. Glad you jump in with us, man. We need to talk about Eric Wilson. And I tweeted it during the game. I was like, more of this, please. But Quay Walker has the sticker on his helmet for a reason. And I think that there was a lot of people that were a little surprised that the defense didn't quite look the same after he got hurt. I think there were some good things. There were some flashes, but it took him a second, I think, to get adjusted. And this is one thing that I always said about AJ Hawk too. It's like, you don't know what the dynamic is from defensive coordinator to play caller, linebacker, leader of the defense position, and that person to the rest of the team. So while AJ Hawk may have not had a lot of flashy stats and just a lot of 5-yard down the field tackles, his communication and his position and leadership amongst that group might have been such that nobody else had, right? Like, and we won't know that. We can't know that unless he writes a book about it or something. But I've seen that, right? And just teams in general, doesn't have to be football, but sometimes there are people who have a better presence, a better communication about them, and they're able to get everybody in line a lot better and quicker and smoother and efficiently. Quay Walker might be that guy. He might be the guy who's just like a good leader on the defense, a good quarterback on the defense. He and Halfley are on the same page, speaking the same language. And when he speaks, the guys listen and get in order. You know what I mean? And you just don't know that, right? Sometimes that dynamic is set in the weight room. There's no telling. These are humans too. But my guess is Quay Walker is he's the sticker wearer for a reason, and the play caller on the defense for a reason. And I call her out to the players. Obviously, Halfley's playing or calling the plays. But anyway, so I think Quay Walker is your guy. Like, he's got to be your guy in the middle. I don't think you're going to replace Quay Walker. I think what you have to do is find a great rotation around him.
I think he's the guy that they trust the most, and he's got the longest leash as far as who's going to be on the field. I don't think he's been as bad as his PFF numbers have been, but he's definitely struggled at times.
Yeah.
I said this when they made the change to a 4-3. Like, I thought he should be an outside linebacker more so than the Mike. I kind of think he's out of position, but I don't think they're going to take Quay if he's got a concussion, so he might be out this week anyhow. Right. But even when he's back, I don't think he's coming off the field because I think they trust him and they see more in him than what we do as fans.
Right.
I don't necessarily agree with that, but that's kind of like, I'm not going to get into the argument about he needs to sit on the bench or whatever, because I just don't think they're going to do it yet. I do think they need to get Adrian Cooper on the field more, and they've been doing that. He's been playing more, but I think it needs to be like almost every snap now. So whether that's an outside linebacker or middle, I don't know. But Eric Wilson, I think, gives you something to really think about, because he was awesome against Houston. He was one of the best players on either side of the ball.
Fantastic.
For him. And I don't know if he can do that week in and week out, and I'm not saying that. But he was a guy whose snaps were starting to shrink while Cooper's were going up. So maybe, if Quay's out, I would think that he's going to play a really big role against the Jaguars. If Quay's back, or when Quay's back, it'll be interesting because they seem to also like McDuffie, but we've kind of seen McDuffie's snaps start to trend down a little bit. So maybe McDuffie's the odd one out, and we see more of Cooper, Wilson, Quay Walker on the field, which I would be fine with. But, regardless, I think Cooper needs to play more. He needs to get more snaps, and you're going to get rookie mistakes. And I think you just got to live with them because his ability, how fast he is, the playmaking ability and the instincts that he shows, like I'll take those and live with the rookie mistakes. He's got to get on the field more. And based on Sunday, I'm kind of intrigued to see more Eric Wilson too. So I think maybe McDuffie's going to be the guy who becomes the fourth linebacker. But it'll also be interesting to see if maybe at some point Quay isn't an every down linebacker too. Maybe that becomes Cooper. Who knows? But yeah, I think we need to answer the question. I think we need more Cooper, and at the moment for going in the Jacksonville game, I'd like to see more Eric Wilson too.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think the other thing we got to keep in mind, and we've kind of been alluding to this and talking about it a little bit, is they're still in this ongoing process of implementing this defensive system, figuring out the best way to operate it, figuring out who fits where. So I would say everything is far from settled, right? I don't think that we have to worry about, they want to leave this guy here, and that's just how it's going to be for the next 5 years. I don't think they're interested in that kind of idea at all. It doesn't seem like they are. And evidence of that is what they're doing right now with Bullard. Having Bullard go from safety, he was getting safety reps, and now he's getting slot corner reps. You got Nixon going outside, leaving the slot corner. You got Williams coming in. So there's evidence here that they're on a weekly kind of evaluation of what to do. And I don't think it's an aimless scrambling around, right? I think it's just, all right, here's what we've seen. Let's try this, and go from there each week. You got a little bit more data to work with each week. You start to see a culmination of work from some of these guys and to figure out who's going to fit where. But, to be fair, Edgerrin Cooper didn't have a great game against the Texans, right? We want to see him more, and you're saying he's going to have the rookie mistakes, and we can agree on that. But you've got to, these guys are looking at it as a whole piece, right? So they're not going to just look at this game and go, well, Coop didn't play very well, so we're not going to increase his snaps next week, regardless of the Quay situation. I think what you're going to see more is look, exactly what you're saying. Here's what Coop's good at. We're seeing this consistently. There will be something consistently that they want to start to really use. And same thing with Eric Wilson. Whatever it's going to be, whatever the situation, the package, the call, that's what I think you're going to start to see is there's going to be packages that certain guys just fit better in. And that's going to be an ongoing process. But like we said, with, watching film on other teams, you get more film each week to watch on your opponent, right? So same thing, you get more film on yourself each week. So it's more data points that you're getting to figure out who's going to do what. And I think they're doing a fantastic job of not doing what Joe Barry did. And they're trying to adjust and get better every week, it seems like. And then good question here. Bobby says, who had the green dot after Quay left the game? I don't know, but I think it was Eric Wilson.
I believe it. Yeah, I think so too. That is a good question. Just because he played the most snaps. So whoever has the green dot's going to stay out there. You don't want to be rotating those guys out. So I'm guessing it was Wilson, which is a little surprising. It wasn't McDuffie, right?
Yeah.
He's been there longer and he was kind of the number 2 linebacker, but Wilson played more snaps. So exactly. That's what I'm assuming is it was Wilson.
Yeah.
And that'll be something too. If Quay's not able to go against the Jaguars, does it stay that way? If Wilson's going to wear the dot, then he's probably going to play every snap.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, and I mean, yeah, the snaps pretty much tell the story. You had, let's see here. McDuffie had 43, Cooper had 41, and Wilson had 56. So yeah, I mean, Wilson went in and didn't come out.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I would imagine that's how they do it again this week. If that was their response last week.
Yeah.
So very, very interesting that the linebacker situation is kind of shifting around. But again, that's evidence that they're trying to figure out what is the best for them, and also that these guys are growing each week, right? Eric Wilson and Cooper are starting to grow, and maybe they're surpassing McDuffie a little bit already. We're not in the room, so it's hard to tell for sure. But again, all the movement and the shifting and the adjusting is just evidence that these guys are not Joe Barry, right? Like we've left the Joe Barry days behind. We can confidently say that.
Yes, he's not going to hurt us anymore.
He's not going to hurt us anymore. We can come out now. But yeah, so I would go with that. I hope we do see more Eric Wilson in this game. It's like I would say all signs point to seeing that. And while we're at it, this is kind of the part where we buzz through some of these PFF grades. He was the top graded defender from this game on the Packers with an 82.7 from PFF. Then Quay Walker was actually number 2 with his grand total of 13 snaps, but in those 13 snaps, he did grade well. Rashawn Gary, number 3 with a 74. McKinney, number 4 with a 69. And Bullard at number 5 with a 66. And really the middle of the pack was graded pretty well. The bottom 5 was kind of ugly, but again, some of this is with a grain of salt. We had Colby Wooden with a 55, Preston Smith with a 37, TJ Slayton with a 35, Edge Cooper with a 34, and Van Ness with a 30.2. Whew. Rough day. But yeah, I mean, the top of the defense, the whole of the defense, the defensive performance overall, very good. And I would say is responsible for this win. And then on the offensive side of the ball, just real quick to buzz through this, we've got at the top, your top grade was Bo Melton with an 81, Romeo Dobbs with a 76, Zach Tom at number 3 with a 72, Jordan Love at number 4 with a 72, and number 5, Ben Sims with a 69. And then at the bottom 5, you've got Rasheed Walker with a 55, Christian Watson with a 53, Chris Brooks with a 50, Andrew Beck with a 41, and Jaden Reed with a 40. Yeah, so I mean, really at the bottom of that, I would take it with a grain of salt because I actually think that those guys all had pretty good games. But overall, again, PFF is just something that's kind of fun to talk about and bat around, but not certainly the source of truth. And then a couple of questions here, turn it back to our guy Rev about Jordan Love here. Concerned about the amount of interceptions of Jordan Love, but I'm loving that Jay Love is tied for first in touchdowns. Yeah, man, we talked a little bit about it at the front of the episode. Not too concerning. I don't think it's especially because several of those interceptions were off of tipped balls that were not his fault. The second one we talked about is just a poor decision, not a good throw by Jay Love. But the summary of that was that's the Favre in him, and a little Favre in him is not a bad thing, guys. Let's not forget that Favre was a 3-time MVP Super Bowl winning quarterback that basically was a big part of rescuing the Packers from the dark days. So not a bad thing there. But overall, Trev, also agreeing with you. So glad we moved on from Aaron Rodgers. The future is bright in Green Bay. So bright, we got to wear our sunglasses, man. And I don't know who you're talking about. That must be another team's quarterback, but he's certainly not our problem. So moving on, we got a game in front of us here down. I believe they're going to Jacksonville, right?
That's correct. Yeah. All Jaguars right. Next.
Hitting them Jaguars. Let's get this banner down. So the Jaguars, my thought here is this is a trap game. Am I wrong?
You got to be careful with this one because they're not a good team, but they're also a desperate team who is trying to save their season, coaching for their jobs. If they would have lost in New England, they might have made a coaching change. But yeah, they're not a good team. They've played some close games, hung in there a little bit. But yeah, it's one of those games where the team better be ready to go. The piss better be hot to start the game, right? Yeah, they're not a team that you would normally be too worried about. I think it's more so like, are the Packers up for this one? Are they mentally straight for this one? Don't overlook it. They're desperate. They need a win,
Mm-hmm.
Jacksonville.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this is going to be, can the players, and there shouldn't be a letdown. There shouldn't be any letdowns in the NFL, but you wonder coming off Houston and they know that was somewhat of a big game. They were playing a good opponent. There was a lot that went into that. As far as some of the trash talking and stuff like that throughout the game, went down to the wire in the last second kick to win. Now you're going and playing a team that's 2-5 on the road, an uncommon opponent that you don't see much. You wonder if there's a little bit of letdown or losing focus. They need to be ready to go because any team can win in the NFL any week. Like we see it all the time. So, and Green Bay is not good enough to take anybody lightly. So be ready to go because, things can get away from you. And the way they've made mistakes this year at times, we know that they're capable of giving game or almost giving a game away. And, you definitely don't want to do that here. Go down there and take care of business because they're clearly the better team than Jacksonville. So go down there and show and take care of it and don't let them have life or don't give them hope in this game.
Yeah, I agree with that. They're definitely not the better team. I think that's easy and fair to say. They are talented. There's a talented offense there. I mean, at one point, Trevor Lawrence was playing some pretty good football. Brian Thomas Jr. is somebody that I was a big fan of throughout the draft process, and I was a vocal fantasy football fan of this guy amongst my fantasy football groups, and I have him on both of my teams. Very happy about that. But yeah, I mean, this feels like a team that is just sort of stumbling. They don't seem to have an identity to me. The running backs aren't bad. I mean, Bigsby's running for 6.2 a carry. That's pretty good. I mean, that's not on like 2 carries, right? He's got 67 carries on the season. That's a pretty dang good average across 67 carries. And Trevor Lawrence, not that he's playing great football, but I mean, he's not careless with the football. He's only got 3 interceptions. So this one to me really does smell like a trap game. Like these guys feel like they've been playing below their potential this season, and I don't know much about them on the defensive side of the ball here. I'll try to pull up their PFF ratings, but
Yeah,
to me, this feels like one of those where you think that for all reasons on paper, the Packers should win. And then you get in the game and you wonder, like, why are we making the Jags look like a Super Bowl team? Like that it
right.
feels like one of those games to me.
Take care of them early, jump on them early. And then, we'll see how much fight the Jaguars put up because there might not be a whole lot of, I mean, they had, before the Patriots game, the previous game that they played in London, they had their safety after the game come out and say that the team quit, that their players were quitting. Like for a player to come out there and call his teammates out, that's pretty big. Bad. And then they came back and they beat New England, which, the Patriots are really bad too, but they did bounce back and get a win. So credit to them. But when you have somebody on your own team saying that there's players that are quitting, that's a horrible sign. But like you said, Brian Thomas is good. Christian Kirk can make some plays. Bigsby's had a nice start. The other back, Eddie, and he's hurt. I'm not sure if he's playing this week or not. He missed the Patriot game, but he's talented too. And Trevor Lawrence, it's been a long time since he's played really well. I mean, pretty much, I guess the first half of last year he was doing all right. The end of 2022 is where it seemed like he was, taking off and showing his potential, but he kind of went off a cliff since then, especially the back half of last season. But he's capable of like getting hot and playing a good game. He's also capable of, being 15 out of 34 with a couple of picks. You don't know what you're going to get. Don't let him get hot. And then defensively, they got a couple pass rushers. So Josh Allen, and he got paid big this offseason. He's a talented pass rusher. He can hurt you. And then the other one is Trevon Walker, who was the first overall pick a couple years ago. They picked him over Aiden Hutchinson for Detroit. He's not Aiden Hutchinson, but he's starting to, last year he had a pretty good year for him. This year, I think he's already up to 6 sacks. So, yeah, this is another game where you got to protect the edges. Like we saw, Houston had 2 edge rushers. They're 2-5 for a reason, but there is some talent there. And again, I think you can't jump on them early. Don't give them hope. Don't give the ball away. Don't make the mistakes they've been making. Come ready to play. And I think they can take care of business. And I think they are definitely capable of pulling away in this game. But it also could be one of those ugly, right down to the final play games where you're like, why couldn't they just win, beat up on Jacksonville easily? Because a lot of other teams are going to do that this year. So, yeah, it's. I think this is a big kind of trap game. Like, are you ready to play? Are you prepared to play this game? It'll be interesting how they respond to playing a team that's really down on their luck and on the road after a nice home victory.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see that, like how they travel right now. I mean, they've been home for a couple weeks. How are you going to travel now? You got nicer weather down there in Florida than you do in Green Bay. Yeah, I just, it feels like a trap game to me. It feels like one of those games where they're going to play down to their competition and make it closer than it needs to be. And Packers Twitter's going to be all pissed off and just, oh, this and that and this and that, fire this person. I mean, like, we're just going to be all, that's what it feels like to me. I feel that coming. And I hope that by saying that, I'm going to cast it out and then I'll be wrong. And that's not what will happen. But our buddy Rev over here, he's got a good prediction for us. Wait a second, got to find the right one here. If the Bears beat the Jags 35-16, we will win big. And I agree, dude. I totally agree with you, Rev. And I want that to happen.
Yeah.
But I've seen this movie before, like, for all reasons, you should be able to win this game. You should be able to win it handily. And it just doesn't happen. And he says, Miles, oh ye of little faith. Rev, my faith is strong, brother. We're going to win this game. We're going to win this game. And it doesn't matter how, because winning is winning. But I'm worried. I'm worried. That's all. So I don't know. Let's see here. What do you think the key to the game is here this week, Tim? What do they have to do to win this one?
I think get off to a really good start. Don't give the Jaguars any kind of hope early in the game. I think if you get out on them, you might be able to bury them and run away with it. I think that's one. And just don't make the mistakes that they've been making. Like, continue to shoot yourself in the foot with some of the penalties, the turnovers, the mistakes on punt returns, not just the Keyshawn Nixon, whatever we want to call it, muff, but Jaden Reed deciding to back up and catch the punt inside his own 5, like stuff like that. Yeah. Don't give Jacksonville anything, because I don't think they're capable of taking too much from you. So don't give them the game. Don't hand them extra possessions and short fields, and just make them have to earn everything from you. Because if you do that, I think the Packers win this one, by more than a score. Let's say, probably double digits. Don't give them easy scores, easy drives, things like that. If you can do that, you should win, and it shouldn't be much of a sweat.
Yeah, I would just, like, if I'm in that room and I'm, sitting next to LaFleur, I'd just like, look, man, let's control this game. Just control it. Like, I don't know. There's a lot of mixed opinions about this. I don't know if I would go as far as to say take the opening kickoff if you win the toss, but control the game. Like, when you have the ball, try to have those long, drawn-out possessions. Let Josh Jacobs run all over the place. Hit. You don't need to be swinging for the fences. That was one of my criticisms about the offense last week. Is it almost seemed like, and we all know this feeling, right? You get up to the tee box, you got a beautiful par 5, wide open, man. There's no trees, no pesky other fairways getting in your way. You just got this big open space to crush a golf ball. And so what are you going to do? You're going to get up there like Mark McGwire, right? You're just going to launch that thing. And that's, of course, the wrong move, You let the club do the work, right? You never actually get up there and just try to hammer a golf ball because it's not going to go where you want it to go if you do that. And that's what it felt like they were doing. It felt like they knew they had an advantage over the Texans defense. And because of that, they were just trying to hit a home run every play, at least earlier in the game. I think in the second half, they settled down, and that's when they started, firing a little bit better. But I would really like to see more methodical drives. I would like to see those drives of, runs, 5-yard passes, just quick hits, just death by 1,000 cuts, and I think if you could do that, that's the recipe for winning this by multiple possessions. I think if they get into the same kind of emotional play calling, like maybe they know they've got a tail or an advantage over Savage because they've been, they know him really well or whatever it is, and they get up there and they try to get too fancy, I think they're gonna trip and they're gonna look foolish and whatever. But if they get out there and they just go out there and execute methodically, I agree with you at that point. I think it gets out of hand for the Jags because I think the Jags are in a similar position here that the Texans were in, where I think they could probably run the ball on the Packers pretty effectively. They've got two good running backs, and we'll see if Etienne plays, but he's a good running back when he's healthy, and Bigsby's looking pretty good too. So if it's a close game, I think the Jags, that plays to their advantage a lot. And that's what you're saying, get out quick on them. But I think if you can be methodical, you can have the, controlled possession of the ball and make sure that you're scoring, pretty much every possession. This game gets out of hand. But I'll make a prediction. Anybody in the chat that wants to throw your score predictions out there, Rev, let us know what you think. I think, unfortunately, this one does stay closer than we want it to. Our Showers, good to see you. I am going to say that the Packers do win this one, but it is going to be an ugly 19-17 win. Sort of like an ugly.
That would be ugly.
Like, ugh.
Yeah.
19-17. Yes, that's what I think. What do you think? Give me a score, Tim.
I'll say they frustrate us for a little while, maybe the first half, but then they pull away. I'm going to go 27-20, 30-20, something like that. I think they pull away, and it's frustrating at times, but they're in control most of the way, where it's not really too much in doubt. It's just one of those, like, can you just stop with the mistakes and just pull away and put this team to, put it out of its misery. But I think they win, and it's not quite as ugly as what you're fearing, but it's not the 20+ point blowout that we're all hoping for.
Well, I hope Rev is right, because he's got 38-13. Sir, can I get an amen? I'm with you here.
Take that.
Let's make that. Let's make that one happen. 38-13. I want to see that. Let's get a pick six in there too. Let's see a bomb to Christian Watson, like an 85-yard. Just, man, let's just light them up. Fireworks. That's what I want to see. And then our Showers with us tonight. I won't post your comment there, but you don't have to feel bad. We're glad you're with us, man. And just a quick comment: Christian Watson's not made of glass. But anyway, we'll get to that next week. But yeah, I'm excited. I do think they win. I'm excited about the streak that we're on here. And real quick, before we actually wrap the show up, the NFC North. Historic start here. And I know that, the Bears got put in their place. They're down there because they had a bye week, which is hilarious. But no, the Vikings get the loss get beat by the Lions. So, they're a little bit shaken out there. It was a close game. Lions without Hutchinson. This is a tough division, man. It's going to be I don't want to use any words that are going to get YouTube unhappy, but yeah, this is going to be a tough division. And the stretch that's coming up is pretty exciting because there's a lot of just back-to-back division games for all the teams. There's like a stretch here where it's like just NFC North action.
Yeah, I think the first division game was Vikings-Lions, if I'm not missing one before that, but I think that was the first.
Well, and then Vikings, we lost to the Vikings.
Oh, right. Packers-Vikings,
that was
Lions.
the first
I think those
one.
are the only two, So yeah, we're going to get a lot of divisional games coming up here, including, after the Jaguars, the Lions come to Lambeau.
Yep.
So we'll have a lot to talk about for that one. But yeah, the division, very impressed. I mean, all the teams look good, and I don't think it's necessarily going to hold up for all of them all year. But so far, yeah, it's the toughest division in football.
I am calling one of them a fraud because their schedule has been incredibly weak to this point. But they've got a winning record,
and
so we'll give it to them.
That team will be playing the Commanders, and there's a really good chance Jaden Daniels does not play. He got hurt on Sunday. So.
Oh, man, I didn't realize
that.
Yeah,
he's week to week. He hurt his ribs. So Marcus Mariota may be trying to beat the Bears.
That's disappointing. I really wanted a Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams matchup there, but hey, credit where credit's due. They're 4-2. This division is incredible. So yeah, if you guys aren't aware, historic start for the NFC North division right now. We are in the toughest division of football, and we're gonna win the dang thing. And we're going to get a trip to New Orleans, y'all. I was noting that the top two rush teams going into this week were the Packers and the Ravens. Typically, Super Bowl teams are good at running the ball. So it brought the thought to mind, like there's like some colors conspiracies out there. And I'm just saying, like a green and gold team going against a purple and gold team in New Orleans. Sounds like a narrative to me. I'm okay with it. But anyway, worth thinking about. The division is awesome, man. Like this is really fun football, and the Lions coming to Lambeau in a couple, or was it next weekend? That is gonna be. Oh man, I'm kind of not gonna lie. I'm kind of bummed that Aiden Hutchinson is gonna be out, but we'll get to that. We don't have to talk about that now. One more shout out here. I did want to call out when we're talking about good football and a specific bias that I have. Shout out to the UW Oshkosh Titans getting a big win over number 6 Platteville this weekend. The Titans now have the most ranked wins in Division III, and then now I believe they're ranked number 9 in Division III. So, but shout out to the WEAC in general. We're sitting here talking about a really tough division in the NFC North. The WEAC is also incredibly tough. A lot of ranked teams, and perhaps another one that should be ranked and stout. They just beat Whitewater this weekend. So a lot of really good football going on there that is probably less than talked about across the airwaves. And if you love good football, the WEAC is a good one to pay attention to. They do produce some NFL talent. There's some guys that have come out. So check it out. UWO, Hail Titans, Gold Standard, all the things that they're saying these days. I got to keep up with all the trendy sayings and stuff. But yeah, very proud of my alma mater there. So I had to get that in there at the end of the episode when, it's a little late. We're okay. But yeah, man, I think that's about it. Any final thoughts there for this week, Tim?
Feeling good. Things are starting to trend, trending upwards for the Packers. So go beat the Jaguars, keep it going, and then get ready for a big divisional showdown with the Lions. But take care of Jacksonville first.
Well, and ours got a prediction for us. He thinks Watson's going to go off this week, so we're due for 30. If not now, when? Yeah, well, I hear you. So, Christian Watson, here we go, man. He's poised for a breakout, and I think that you just called it. So we'll have to come check the receipts next week. But either way, I think the Packers are on a great stretch right now. It's a lot of fun to watch. If you're not enjoying this, you're not a Packer fan, so get out of here. This is fun football, guys. This is fun to see. It's fun to see these players play well together, enjoy each other. It's fun to see Dobbs come back and look the way that he has now. It seems like that whole situation's been resolved. Just a lot of fun right now. So if you're not having fun with this, then figure it out, because this is what football is all about. But thanks for hanging with us this week, y'all. We love when you guys come in, join us in the comments, talk a little Packers football, have a little bit of fun on the Packers Weekly podcast. If y'all would spike that like button for us if you enjoyed the episode, and please go to Packers Talk YouTube channel and subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. All those things are free. Take you a couple seconds. It'll be done, and it'll mean the world to us. So we would greatly appreciate it. And we will see y'all next week, Packers fans. Go.